In a week where I did a bunch of kickboxing tape study and none of it meant anything, out is the former winner. A guy who beat Alex Pereira at Cesar Almeida in. Guess who's back? Back again. 1-3 UFC fighter, 11-8 American Top Team's own Denis Tiuliulin. Listen, if you listen to a lot of podcasts, you're a big NFL fan. I listen to a lot of Ryan Russillo. They talk about Ron Rivera. They call him Riverboat Ron because that guy will gamble. He will just make the tough decisions. He'll go crazy. He's a little bit like a Brandon Staley. 4th down, 4th and 8. Are we going for it? You know we're going for it. Denis Tiuliulin is a rock'em sock'em robot personified. This guy, it's all 1-2s, and occasionally he'll throw a left hook in there and mix in a leg kick every once in a blue moon. But for Denis Tiuliulin, it's a lot of rock'em sock'em. And if you watched him outside of the UFC, we were pretty critical about it coming in to take on Aliaskhab Hizriev, who hasn't fought since, but has a fight on the horizon for February. You look at Tiuliulin against Hizriev, you're taking on one of the better wrestlers to come into the UFC. Hizriev has a little bit of a hard time at the start. He ends up getting the finish over Tiuliulin, and that's been the story. I mean, Tiuliulin struggled in the first round after that against Jamie Pickett, gets outstruck second round, mixing in those knees, mixing in those strikes, 2 knockdowns, he finishes Pickett. His last couple of fights, he was on the receiving end of beatdowns, and the last time that we saw Denis Tiuliulin, it was against G-Rod, Robocop, Gregory Rodriguez, and in that one, you were afraid for Rodriguez because he was coming off the Bruno Ferreira knockout.
Thought Tiuliulin was going to win and look great.
A giant surprise. Tiuliulin, you had to think, okay, Gregory, we know how good the judo is. We know how good the jiu-jitsu is. Will he go for the takedown? He went single leg to body lock trip takedown. Gregory gets on top. Daniel Cormier didn't think some of those elbows were great, but I thought they were pretty darn good. He ends up knocking out Denis Tiuliulin. Not like a TKO. He knocked him out, and then the referee gets in there. So Tiuliulin struggled with the takedowns, but he gets from point A to point B really quickly. For this camp, again, Tiuliulin's been an American Top Team for a little bit of time. He was at Extreme Couture before that, and for his fight against Gregory Rodriguez this summer, he was training with Fedor team, and Fedor himself didn't help him a single bit, but we'll see how it makes out for Tiuliulin, training with guys like Rinat Fakhretdinov, some of the best and brightest at ATT. I think Extreme Couture was a pretty darn good gym for him, but when you're taking on a fancy striker like CLD, Christian Leroy Duncan, Tiuliulin could have an advantage with the speed and crashing that distance and messing up the timing, the flow of a guy like Duncan.
Tiuliulin hanging out with Fedor reminds me of when prospects hang out with Hakeem for the summer, and then everybody brings it up. He went to post-move camp. He's got the moves now. For Tiuliulin, that's the thing. The highs are so high. When you just watch him strike and able to land all these explosive shots, that it is easy to get caught up in the fighter that he could be, right? Because it is such a positive, and he comes with such a big flurry, and he's a massive fighter for this weight class, too. He's a really big guy. I don't know if this fight against Duncan, just look at it this way in the most plain ways of saying it. Denis Tiuliulin has poor takedown defense. He's been hit quite a few times in his career. He has great striking offense, but he did get stopped not that long ago. Even if we didn't know that he got stopped not that long ago, Christian Leroy Duncan can make him pay for a lot of those areas in his game. We brought it up at the start of the week. Is his wrestling at the forefront? No, it isn't. But can he go for takedowns when things get ugly? Yes, he can. He can go for them from the clinch. He can shoot doubles and single legs. Again, they're not the most refined, but they will get him out of sticky situations. And on the outside, I do think his footwork and his ability to throw at range, yes, it might make him a little bit more available to be hit by Tiuliulin if he's able to judge his distance, but it's also going to make for a lot of movement that Tiuliulin's going to have to counter down and corner before he can start to land those shots.
And Christian Leroy Duncan, I mean, we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Cage Warriors middleweight champ. He was undefeated going into his last matchup against Armen Petrosian. Couldn't figure out the distance.
The fights were so exciting before that one, too.
They were good. The Dusko Todorovic win, I mean, it almost doesn't count.
Yeah.
It was a knee injury. It was gross. They were up in a clinch and Dusko slips, and that's it. But the Dimitrov fight, spinning elbow, it was a wild finish. The Jadi Milan fight where, I'll mention it to the end of time, he's getting taken down. He's losing at the start. He rallies back. He gets the win. The Justin Moore fight, poor Justin was a giant underdog and didn't stand a chance in that one. But if you do go down through it, a Will Curry win holds so much water for me, and CLD looked really good in that one. So if you do consider it, again, CLD, you watch him strike, you watch him fight, he almost reminds you of like a blown up big time Anthony Pettis. It's like he's got Taekwondo to the max. He trains out of Renegade Jiu-Jitsu with the big guns. I mean, the Tom Breezes, the Edwards brothers, and so on. Range Academy to mix up the striking. If you do look at this matchup again, when you have a berserker on your hands that goes from point A to point B so quick like a Denis Tiuliulin, it has to be tough to game plan. Christian Leroy Duncan, unlike our other short notice matchup on this fight card, Uros Medic is going from Muay Thai striking Johnny Parsons to grappling heavy Myktybek Orolbai, who likes to strike. Christian Leroy Duncan's going from Cesar Almeida, one of the better kickboxers that you're going to find in the UFC, to Denis Tiuliulin, who marches forward and throws a lot of power shots. So I'll be eager to see what we get out of Tiuliulin, because again, I would think he's got to be on somehow a new contract. He's 1-3. Usually they're 4-fight deals, and for Christian Leroy Duncan going into the third, if you do consider this one, Matt, I don't have the odds in front of me. I would assume that Christian Leroy Duncan is a pretty big favorite over Tiuliulin. He is. We have a look at the Topology vote. Surprised us there to you. I'm going to say over under 85% CLD.
I'm going to say over.
And they are way over. 1,049 total votes, 94% Duncan, 79% by knockout for the 6% that have Tiuliulin, 48% by knockout. This is such a hot, cold, ice meets fire type of fight, and I would stay away from it. Call it pop and popcorn. It's going to be interesting while it lasts, right?
I just think of it this way. If the blitzes were that good, you wouldn't be 11-8.
Yeah.
And that might be a rude way of just saying it, but it is the truth. Like, all of the positives are there, and we can mention them until we are blue in the face.
Hold on. Tiuliulin outside of the UFC was what? 10-5. And out of his 10 wins, 5 of the 10 were debuting fighters, and the combined opponent record in total was 25-29. Then you add up 13-7 Jamie Pickett, and I sound like a guy that's picking numbers out of nowhere. And well, if you look at the stars, and if you put your tinfoil hat on, everything adds up. Denis Tiuliulin hasn't beaten the greatest level of competition. He's lost to some okay fighters. That much is true. But yeah, for me, I do like Christian Leroy Duncan to pick his spots and possibly even just win a decision in this one.
And hopefully we get the original matchup booked again, because I was really excited for that original fight. I thought that would have been an amazing one. I've also got Christian Leroy Duncan, though. Hopefully he can go out there and just have one of those well-rounded performances. So like you said, this might not be the worst fight to kind of play it safe, right? Almost show us the version you showed against Petrosian just to play it safe, don't get knocked out by Tiuliulin, and then kind of rebuild yourself after.
Both of us going with Christian Leroy Duncan to get the win. Matt, make sure that you check out, for you and for the rest of the folks, check out the video. Uros Medic taking on Myktybek Orolbai here on the channel. The full card video. It's got all of the other fights. No question mark kicks this week, but we might try and do something on Saturday on Instagram. So you can find us there at Fight Night Picks. You're going to want to keep it locked in. As we always say, let's get into it.